Hard refresh.
How do we? Do we want to have music lead in? The music lead in.
We could figure that out. later. We could edit that.
Nick and I are talking and
Yeah.
little laugh, right?
Okay.
Put the pencil down. Hello, everybody. Welcome to
Hard refresh.
Horrible Name, Great Podcast.
Great name.
It is a great
It's
name.
a
So
great-
let's talk about what exactly
Hard refresh.
it is.
Sure.
It is us getting excited and geeking over geek stuff. So for the most part, that's going to be design and coding. This is going to be fairly technical blog and vlog where we're talking about specific things about what we're particularly geeking out at the moment.
Right.
Right now, we're geeking out over accessibility. So if you're into accessibility and you're into design and dev and you're into Star Trek, you're in the right place. So there's about 4 people right there. And 2 of them are sitting right here.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we get 2 views, awesome.
You're Chuck?
I'm Chuck. This is Nick.
Hello.
I'm the creative director here at Millennium, and Nick is the
Director of
director of
front-end
front-end development at Millennium. So we like to think we're pretty smart. Our wives may think something else. I want to welcome our producers, Shaq and Caitlin. You may hear their voices here and there. Most likely you probably won't hear Shaq because he doesn't like hearing
Sound
his
of
voice.
Yeah.
Sound of his voice. That could be we'll try to make him talk.
There's actually a Superman villain where Superman tries to get him to say his name
That's
backwards.
Mixaplex.
Yeah, so
Or
maybe
Klipskliflim.
maybe that's Shaq's weakness is that if we get him to speak, he
So
goes
is
back to his
Shaq
realm.
Cash backwards or cuss?
Kosh? Which is it?
I
Which
think
would be backward? No, he's not falling for it.
Well, but if you just turn it backwards, it would be cuss.
Koss.
But the SH, so you can't get that
Okay.
from Mixaplex.
All right.
That would be like Chuck. Is Chuck Kutch backwards or Cuck?
Cuck. No.
I think we gotta.
Stop there.
I think we gotta try to make Shaq say cash.
Cash. Yeah. So
He's trying not to laugh because he doesn't want anything on audio. All right. So
before we get jumped into this,
okay.
do you mind if I crack open a beer? I brought some beers for us to try because that's another thing I geek out about.
Okay.
So
I.
So you've got an awesome beard, and so does this guy.
All right. Let's see. North Coast Brewing Company, Old Rasputin.
Yeah.
All right. Crack it. Well, you know what? Crack open one.
Okay.
I'll try it. Oh, we'll show the label. Shaq is telling me to.
This is completely
show the label.
non-sponsored,
We're trying to get some
non-affiliated.
sponsorships here.
We're trying to get sponsorships. So North Coast Brewing Company, hey.
We
What's
need that
up?
North
2
Coast Brewing
viewers,
Company on
you can
here.
take that one. Just put a little bit in that one for me.
How about
'cause
that? That's
I'm going to
fine.
move this over here. That's good. That's good. Whoa, hey, easy.
Hey, okay.
Trying to get me drunk.
So this is an imperial stout. It's very hoppy. It's gonna taste like chocolate and coffee and cold brew. But yeah,
Crap
anyway.
otherwise.
Exactly.
Wait. Let's smell.
I got all head here. I'm on.
Do you want to wait?
Mm.
Drink it right out of the bottle.
Mhm.
Bohemian.
That's good.
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
It's actually not bad.
It's not bad.
It's
It's
not that
drinkable.
hoppy.
Nah.
Got a lot of bubbles in it.
Yeah.
It's got a huge coffee
Yeah.
note afterwards.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh wow, like really? But you don't taste it at the beginning.
No, it's.
Should probably let
it's
this
like-
warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
That might be better.
So,
Shaq, I apologize because actually I maybe even do like it. Shaq offered me a taste of his before, and I'm like, no.
no.
But I think that's actually good. I should wait and see.
Yeah,
So
just
here's
let
what you do: you'll pick new stuff,
Yeah.
and then every cast will have something interesting.
Yeah,
But I'm probably going to have a couple sips because I got to drive home.
That's fine.
So.
And
All right. So let's see. So we're geeking out about accessibility now, and lately there's a lot of news about it. There's a lot of lawsuits happening about it, specifically as it pertains to websites. So we do an awful lot of remediation for accessibility, which you'll hear Nick mention the WCAG requirements, which is essentially the WC3's way of explaining how you satisfy the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is law. So primarily, we're looking at government, we're looking at healthcare, and we're looking at financial, who have requirements to be available and accessible to people with different abilities. So blind, cognitive abilities, inability to use a mouse, and maybe they're using their mouth or a blow tube to actually get through a web page, or they're blind and they can't actually see the web page. And accessibility works in the realm of what's called screen readers. Nick is going to be showing you some of those later.
Yeah. In
terms of how a web page looks to a blind person, which is actually, no pun intended, an eye-opening experience. It's actually very interesting.
Yeah.
So we are going to dive deep into some geeky stuff. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you jump over to the YouTube channel, which Caitlin's going to be setting up for us, and we'll be separating out these little vignettes. So you'll actually be able to see the code and learn some stuff.
Yeah, and I'll be putting this on a code pen as well, so you can actually take a look at some of the code that I'm doing, and try incorporating it on your own projects.
That'll all be in the show notes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So without further ado, unless Caitlin's got some questions to ask, we're good.
Okay.
No.
All right. So
we're good.
So the first thing I want to talk about is Aria, right? So.
Okay, so explain what Aria is.
You mentioned W3C, and
Yes.
they do the WCAG guidelines. They also put out these Aria standards, right? So that's the Accessible Rich Internet Applications. That's what Aria stands for.
Right.
And they're mostly attributes that you would put on your code to enhance the usability or the semantic nature of a lot of these.
So when
elements.
you say elements you put on your code, so we're going to take into account that people are watching this
right.
are coders.
Yeah.
However, you may be people just interested and don't really understand. So when you say add these attributes to your code, what exactly do you mean?
So normally I'm talking about HTML. And so Aria, whatever, would be an attribute that you would put on your HTML.
So an attribute on an image tag or a label or a div, or actually a div's
link.
Mostly, right? Because
so different ones would do different things.
We talking to
functions.
React developers?
Yeah, we could be. Yeah, but you could actually use these elements on, I think XML and SVGs. So anything that's there's a lot of different standards out there for.
Maybe we should have called the podcast acronym.
What?
Acronym.
Acronym.
SVG, HTML.
Oh yeah.
WCAG, ADA.
TGP podcast. No. All right. So I'm gonna get into some of this, and actually before I get into that, I want to talk more about why we need these. So the early days of the web, there wasn't a lot of dynamic nature to this, but the web has gotten more and more dynamic, right? So you talk about things like DHTML or JavaScript, AJAX, single page applications. Those are some of the things that are happening that aren't always communicated to screen readers.
Right. So in the beginning, way back in 1993, when you had pages that were relatively simple, they had header tags, they had paragraph tags, image tags, a little later on, a link, but they were mostly, they started off being used by researchers, but as it became more of a marketing medium, pages were built, but pages were kind of structured correctly as outlines, and by the nature of it, they were kind of semantic because you had an H tag that meant a header with a number value, and you had a P tag, which is a paragraph, so they kind of made sense.
Right.
And I don't believe there were screen readers back then, or when screen readers started. We'll have to find that out. So if somebody knows, put it in the comments. I'm going to say that every time I say that, Kale's like, yes, interaction. But now, like you said, with more complex development, specifically with things like React and a lot of modular development, you get a lot of nesting and things inside of things inside of
Things
things.
are changing.
And the usage of a lot of divs, which is just a horror show when it comes to accessibility.
Yeah.
It's actually a horror show when it comes to just coding anyway. Don't do millions of nested divs. They're just silly. You should be semantically coding.
Right.
So, my point of view on that is like the code should be as beautiful as the website. So, have pride in that. It's the thing like Steve Jobs do all the time. Like, why are you worrying about making sure it looks really good on the inside on the circuit board? So somebody's going to open up sometime and it needs to look great. So taking into account that there is a whole lot of sloppy code out there.
Right.
And then these Aria labels are things that actually help turn good code, but also turn sloppy code into stuff that is actually accessible.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's a tool
right.
for getting to the next step, which is making a site accessible or
Right.
page accessible.
So the first one I want to talk about is Aria-Current.
Before you start, Bob Ross.
Bob Ross.
The
Happy,
man,
happy
the
little
myth, the
codes.
legend. Happy little codes.
For the podcast listeners, Chuck is referring to his mug.
Oh yeah,
that
that's
says-
right.
Bob Ross, I'm holding up the mug.
Not the actual person.
Not the actual person, right? What would be, what that sounded like? Did you ever watch old soap operas when they change an actor? And then as soon as you see that character, it's like, the character of Caitlin will now be played by, Donna so-and-so. And there was just this old, and then that was it. And then all of a sudden the person is now different. That's what it sounded like. For those of you listening. Anyway, where were we? I distracted you, Nick.
You did. Do you remember when they changed the actress for the mom in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
I did.
Yes.
That was big. And then
It was a
they
scandal.
mentioned it, and they mentioned
Yeah, they made something. No, was it the mom or was
No,
it
they
Aunt
made
Viv?
like
A joke.
a really meta joke.
Yeah, you're like, you look
You
different."
look different.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone looks at the camera. and laughs
You look
and
different. Yeah,
winks to it.
it's awesome.
Good. Yeah. All right. So Aria-Current.
Your head's gone.
It is. I had to say that was good. So Aria-Current is an attribute that you would add to...
Hold on, back up.
Yeah, sure.
So we're actually stepping into the actual
We're going
Aria labels themselves. You're
Yep.
talking about Aria.
an Aria attribute.
It's called Aria-Current.
Aria-Current.
What does it do?
So
What's the problem that Aria-Current's trying to solve?
So what we do is we represent a lot of things with CSS. And a
Okay.
screen reader is not going to read every CSS attribute, or it doesn't even read every div and span. What it's doing is it's going to be interacting with the browser's accessible API. And the accessible API is going to just give you certain elements that it thinks are relevant.
Okay.
Right?
So let's back up.
Okay.
So we've got a web browser running,
Okay.
and we've got a screen reader running, two completely separate applications, both running on the operating system.
Right.
So what's happening is that the browser is actually just has an API that the screen reader ties into.
Right.
So that browser is the screen reader is basically just reading what the browser is telling it what you're looking at. So in
Right.
this case, a div or a link or
Right.
whatever. So if we're using CSS to style the current page or
Right.
current section with
In
like
it.
an underline, or a lot of times it's just reversing the text in the background into a block, like a tab type interface. The browser is displaying that. It's reading the CSS and displaying that. But as far as the API is concerned, the screen reader doesn't know that that's the current page. All it knows is
Exactly.
that that's a link. That's all that matters to
Exactly,
it. Right.
yeah.
Okay. So this Aria-Current is a way to tell the screen reader, hey, by the way, this is now the current thing,
Right.
and you're gonna announce that as current.
Right, and it's very common, right? It's
Yeah.
you see this on every website. So this is an example blog, fake blog
So
that I've got up here.
So let's flip to the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So I don't have a current page yet, but so we have opinions written here. So
All
I'm
right,
going to
so-
make the opinions
so-
link.
So this
look
is
active.
actually a point of where it's like, so we have a current page, we have a navigation.
Yeah.
However, the user has no idea what page you're actually on unless they read the header,
Right.
which is not actually the first thing. They're going to see the nav first. So let's make sure we give them user feedback that they understand they're in the right place.
Right. Exactly.
So right now, what you're doing is you're adding a current page class
Right.
to that link.
And this is the way
and styling it.
most people would do this, right? So it's a class on the A tag that I've got here,
Right.
and let's just do text decoration underline.
Okay.
All right.
So when we refresh that page, we should be seeing an underline under
It's
opinion.
subtle.
It's subtle. We would probably, you know what? Switch
Do
that
it.
back.
All right. You
Make
want to
that-
do a border?
Just do a border bottom, and make it red and like 3 pixels. Creative director.
I
Nick.
know. And this is
And
it's literally for a test.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
decent.
Okay.
Well, it's not really 3 pixels, but whatever. It's cut off.
Yeah, it is cut off. All right. So
Whatever, it's fine.
we're working with this. All right. So now I'm going to open up a screen reader. So if you're on Mac OS, your operating system ships with a screen reader called VoiceOver.
Okay.
VoiceOver on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap window. Blog template for Bootstrap web content as keyboard focus. You are currently on web content. To enter the web area, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
All right.
All
So,
right, so let's stop it. So we learned this the hard way, not to talk over the screen reader. So is that typically, that's what it sounds like? Or
Yeah,
do users, that's fast.
it is fast. Yeah, I've got it on pretty fast. I know people who use these every day probably have it a lot faster.
Really?
Yeah, but I've
Okay.
got it on fast because I'm looking for certain things.
All
and
right,
I
so
wanna get
now,
through
all right,
quick,
so now you've got the screen reader rolling.
yeah,
I want to say this now because we're going to be quiet when you're going through.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up tabbing through
Yep.
the navigation, which is going to
Blog
tab
template
us
for
to each
Bootstrap web
link,
content banner.
right? So that's our it's announcing
Yeah.
the content banner.
Yeah.
So you're going to tab through all the links. So when we get to opinion, the screen reader should say opinion is the current one. However, all we've done
it's just a
is
class.
style it with a class.
Exactly.
So it won't do that.
It's
So
a-
to a blind user using screen reader, not gonna be able to understand crap.
Visit link. Visit link. Visit link. Visit
So I'm
link.
skipping over.
Sign up.
Yeah.
End of navigation. Visit link. Visit link. US. Visit link. Technology. Visit link. Design. Visit link. Culture. Visit link. Politics. Visit link. Opinion. Visit link. Science.
Okay.
VoiceOver off.
So it sounds like any other link here.
It sounds like any other link,
Right.
but it looks like an active link.
Yeah, look at that big border. Okay, so if I change this,
Can we change the podcast name to Big Board?
Big borders.
Thick borders.
Thick Borders.
THICC.
Coders without borders.
Ooh,
Ooh. Maybe.
that's a good one.
Coders without borders.
Yeah, you like that.
That's not bad.
Okay, so I'm doing Aria-Current equals page.
Okay, so by doing that, basically you're adding Aria-Current equals page, and you're adding that as an attribute to the actual tag itself.
Yes.
We
So
s-
if you had this in a list, which is probably a good idea, this should probably be in a list underneath the nav. You wouldn't put it on the LI. You're always going to put it on the A
And the
tag,
actual link itself.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
the tappable element.
So now you have your Aria-Current
Yep.
equals page. So that attribute is saying the current thing is a page.
Right.
That's an object statement. Basically.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
All right, so now I'm going to turn the screen reader back on.
Did you refresh?
VoiceOver on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap window. Visit link. Science. Visit link. Science.
Based
You
on
are
Nick's
currently on
face, he
voiceover
didn't
off.
refresh.
I did not refresh. Hold on. All right, now.
VoiceOver on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap window. Blog template for Bootstrap web content as keyboard focus. You are currently on web content. To enter the web area, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
So I probably should have also mentioned to turn VoiceOver on your computer, if you haven't done it before, you just hit Command F5.
Right.
And now to navigate, I'm using Control Option right and left.
Blog template for Bootstrap. In blog template for visit. End of visit.
Slow down.
Visit link. Politics. Current page. Visit link. Opinion.
Ah,
Yeah.
You
there
are
we
currently
go.
on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space. VoiceOver off.
okay. So I like really clean code,
Yeah?
but now we have a class
Right.
that styles it, and we have an attribute that makes it accessible to a screen reader. Can we combine those?
Yes.
All right.
Good segue. So,
I'm all about the segue, Lundy.
So we styled based off on this class, right? Current page.
Yep.
So I'm going to remove that
Okay.
and tie it directly to this attribute. That
All right.
way.
So how do we do that?
Yeah. So now the styling and the accessibility attribute that we added are
Right, so-
one and the same. So I'm actually going to, in my CSS, do Aria-Current
All right, so this is A bracket Aria-Current equals
True.
quote true. You're not putting
Oh, page.
the page. Okay,
Page. Exactly.
great.
And yeah. So
All right, so that's a basic CSS model that lets you target an attribute of a tag.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay, so you refreshed it, and now we have our style, which is good.
And I already removed the class, so.
All right, so we don't have to test it again because we already had
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just hit the mic. All right, so that's Aria-Current. Very cool,
Yeah.
simple. I get it, understandable.
And that's Aria-Current page. You can actually use Aria-Current for other things too. So Aria-Current could equal location. If you were using it in breadcrumbs, it could represent the current page you are, like let's say on a sitemap or a breadcrumb listing.
Oh, okay.
You could do Aria-Current date if you had some kind of control that was a calendar control, and you were able to like click on different links for different dates. One of the dates could be current date.
Right. So in your visual calendar, you've got a red circle around the active date.
Right,
This is a way to make sure that it's readable and accessible.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And then you've also got, the last one is Aria-Current step. So if you had a multi-step process or tabs that indicated what step you were currently on, you could put Aria-Current state.
Okay. Cool.
Step. All right.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right. Very helpful.
Cool.
So that's our first one.
Yeah.
So in terms of how this kind of podcast is running, we're going to continue to go through these, and you guys will notice that I'm calling out certain things of what he's doing. That way, like when you're listening to this, you can get it, but you really should visit the YouTube channel and get a look at the individual videos, as we'll block them out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move into our next one.
Sure.
Or do you want to talk shop? Let's talk the beer.
Talk the beer. It's
So-
doing good.
So what is that? Bring the bottle over here.
Is this still the same one?
I know it's still the same one.
Chuck's wasted.
It's called Rasputin.
I've had 3 sips. It's not that bad. Yeah, North Coast Rasputin, product of the USA.
So
Trying to get sponsors.
so when you think of Rasputin, what do you think of?
Oh yeah.
I think the Mad Russian.
The Mad Russian. So I was talking to Caitlin. We think of the movie Anastasia.
Which is technically the same.
The same guy.
Rasputin.
Same guy.
We are specifically thinking of the cartoon Rasputin.
Yeah,
While
and-
you're thinking of the actual.
remember
The
his-
actual real Rasputin?
Yeah. He was basically Jafar. He was
Yeah.
Millennials.
Exactly.
What was Anastasia? I don't think I saw that.
It was a 20th Century Fox.
Yes, and not a
movie.
Disney film.
Not a
Look at
Disney
her.
film.
She knows.
Meg Ryan was. the
Look at
voice
this.
of- I've seen this movie a lot. I owned it on
She's thrill
VHS.
gigging about
Meg
this.
Ryan?
Meg Ryan
I can
was
see
the
her
voice
face. She's like, "You are such a geek. I didn't know that. This is great."
Good.
About Anastasia. Yes, I am most certain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And there's
So
magic.
it's not pronounced Anastasia?
well,
Anastasia in the film, right? Anastasia.
Anastasia.
Yeah. It's got music, and it's
Just do that.
and then there's a character Bartok who's awesome. He's a bat. I don't
He
know.
is
It
the-
Bartok? Right? It was not.
Bartok,
Yeah,
yeah.
Bartok. Yeah.
Isn't that a Star Trek character? It's gotta be.
No.
With a name like that?
He was
Yeah.
Rasputin's sidekick.
He was
this
Iago.
little-
Okay, yeah,
he
it's
was a
Jafar
bat.
and Iago.
I know, but he was
Yeah.
basically yeah.
So-
no, I was like, wait, was he
Yeah.
a rat?
No,
I was
he's
like,
bat.
No,
He's
a
Bartok.
bat.
So
Yeah.
Jafar is totally Rasputin and Iago is totally Bartok.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's good.
I
It's good.
believe
Thrill Geekers.
the movie was on Netflix for a while. If you're interested in doing
And
In
it-
case you're not doing anything else tonight.
And it's animated?
Yes.
Animated movie, songs, everything. Yeah, it's good.
And it's not Disney?
It's not
It's
Disney.
not Disney. That might be a recurring feature. We'll just talk about different cartoon movies. You missed
That
out.
are not Disney.
That's not Disney. Ferngold.
All right.
Next time. Okay.
That was a great little,
segue.
and now a word from our sponsor.
North Coast Brew.
North
Yeah.
Coast Brew Company.
Yeah.
No, actually, technically, it was probably Millennium.
Yeah.
Right?
We do have sponsors. We have sponsors.
So, if anybody's interested in this accessibility stuff, and you are in the Long Island area, check out the Long Island Web Accessibility and Inclusive Design Meetup.
Yeah.
So just go to meetup.com and search for Long Island Web Accessibility and Inclusive Design, and it will come up. We meet right now. We're meeting every other month. We have if you watch this now, you may be watching this 2 years from now, but the next meetup is happening in February, this February, in about 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So check that out. We will put a link in the description for you on the YouTube channel and in the show notes for the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about number 2. What's next? What's the next Aria label?
Okay, so the next one is so next Aria attribute is Aria Label.
Is Aria label. See, I didn't see his notes. I didn't know he was talking about that. But okay, good. Aria label.
So getting back to the accessible API, a lot of these elements are described to the screen reader by what's called its accessible name. So you get to a link, and the accessible name of the link is normally the contents of the link, right? So if you have a button that says subscribe inside it, when you get to that button, the screen reader is going to read the contents. If you get to an image,
it's going to mean the text contents that's inside the tag.
Exactly.
Okay, not the href.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
I got it. Okay.
And it might read some of that stuff.
All right.
But if you get to an image, the accessible name would be based on the alt attribute, for example.
Got
That's
it.
another. All right.
Yep.
We get into a problem when we start using SVG inline, or if we use font-based icons, where
Which is super common. We use Font Awesome a lot.
Right, exactly.
And that the text for Font Awesome is like, #X79TT or something
right,
like that.
and it
which
actually
makes
will read that.
No
It will read
it
that.
will
to
read.
a
Yeah,
screen
we've seen
reader.
that. Like, where's that coming from? Yeah.
So anyway, in this example, I've got a search icon that's inline SVG code.
Flip to the screen.
And the inline SVG code has obviously no alt attribute, right? So we need to come up with another solution for the screen reader. So I'm going to do a test here to kind of just illustrate the problem.
Point your cursor over to what we're talking about. So what we're talking about is up in the top level navigation, over to the right, we've got a sign up button, but right next to it is a search icon of a magnifying glass, and that's an SVG.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
And actually, I remember Font Awesome. I think it was 4. When it gave you the example code, it had like ways to make it accessible, and it said Aria-Hidden and all this stuff, and then they removed all of that for some reason. So
why'd they remove that?
I don't know. They're
trying to put some pressure on Font Awesome.
Yeah. Put it
So,
back.
Safari, blog template for Bootstrap window. Blog template for Bootstrap web content has keyboard focus.
All
You
right.
are currently on web content. To enter the web area, press Control Alt in blog template for Bootstrap. Visit link. Visit link. Fake blog. Visit link. Index.html. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Options. Voice
So
over
it
all.
said visited link index.html. It read the destination of the link because this is a dummy link, right? That doesn't go anywhere. But
It's just a hash. Yeah. Okay.
But it was basically reading the destination
Right.
and not really describing what the heck that icon represents, which is search.
Right.
And somebody visually obviously would know that was search. But
So if that did say, which typically is not the case, if it did say search.html,
right,
then it would actually have read that.
would
However,
read search,
typically
right.
with today's design and UI components, clicking on that would actually reveal a field to type into.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you're not actually going to a search page. That's usually the advanced search link, right?
Right.
So there's usually some kind of control that shows up right there within the interface.
Right.
So right now the user has no idea what that actually does.
Right.
The blind user has no idea. Or the screen reader user has no idea.
Exactly. So
And also, by the way, also a cognitive issue. So, I mean, you would think most people would understand a magnifying glass means search, but that's a paradigm that's kind of been built by web user interfaces. But if you're new to it, because magnifying glass sometimes means more information, or sometimes means make something bigger because you see that on galleries, right?
Right.
So
actually, that's a really good point.
what does it mean?
Because I
make good points.
I see icons all the time that I have no idea what they represent, and I am hoping that if I hover my mouse over that, I will get some kind of clue.
Oh, I do.
All the time, right?
All the time.
So we could actually add a title too.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna do.
Let's make it super. I know Shaq is going to tell you to stop banging on the computer because you're hurting his ears.
Okay.
He says okay.
I'll wait for him to tell me that himself.
Should we do a poll to ask people what they think Shaq's voice sounds like?
But how would
He's saying no, he doesn't want.
how would you ever like what would people say? Like How do you describe him?
He sounds like
Another
Shaquille
person.
O'Neal, or he sounds like
Oh.
Christopher Walken.
He sounds like Rasputin.
He does sound a lot like Christopher Walken. No, he doesn't.
I like how your first example was Shaquille.
Well, that's where his name came from. That's where his name
I
from.
know.
Okay, so I've added 2
Which I
attributes
personally
to
think is
this.
badass.
So right on the link,
He's writing something on there.
I sound like
It sounds like this. And this is in quotes. All right,
So we've
Alright.
got
back to screen.
okay. So on the link, I've added 2 attributes: Aria Label equals search, and I've also put title equals search.
Okay.
There's actually a really good chance the screen reader would read that title too, but we'll try.
Well,
it
we
out.
can actually test it. Well, actually, why don't you change the title? Let's
The-
change it to search site.
search site.
All right. So the
Okay.
label is saying search. The title is saying search site.
Okay. And let me
No,
refresh.
it really would be site search. But whatever. No, don't change it now. Creative director, remember?
Yeah. So here, I'm going to hover, and I got site search.
So you
so
hover.
that's good.
You hover over it. Now you got the tooltip. The system tooltip for
Right.
for Safari shows up says site search. Good. So
Which
title
is just
worked.
good.
Great.
Not accessibility, but just good UX.
That's,
I think.
yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Voiceover on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap window. Blog template for Bootstrap web. In blog template for Bootstrap web content. Visited link. Subscribe. Visited link. Fake blog. Visited link. Search. Search site. You are currently on a link. To click this link,
said
press Control
both.
Option Space.
But it said both.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it first said the search, and basically what it did is it overrode the existing accessible name for that element, which was the destination. And
Yep.
so now we made it just
Visited link.
what
Visited
we
got
link.
it.
Search.
search.
Search site. You are currently on a link. To click this, voiceover off.
And you could put other things inside that Aria label, like for example, if that was a button, you could say opens overlay, or if it was a link that opens in a new tab, you could say, hey, opens in a new tab, just to describe some of the things, so it's a bit more predictable, the
Right.
behavior.
So besides just announcing the name, you could actually describe the function that it's happening
Yep.
to provide some context.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, modal's a whole other accessibility thing we won't jump into that here. That's something we can probably jump into at a later podcast
So there's
or
actually
vlog. We got to figure out, what do we call a cast? Let's just call it a cast.
cast.
The cast.
The cast.
The pod.
I want to show you another use
The
for
vid.
Aria label.
Nick's just like, I want to talk about
Go
Aria.
back to
I
work.
just want to jerk around.
So
5 sips and
some screen reader users actually
Voiceover on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap window. Visited link. Search. Has keyboard focus. Search site. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
So some screen reader users won't actually go from element to element to element. They'll open up what's called the rotor. And the rotor allows you to see all common elements, right? So you could see all regions, all headings, like a table of contents, or you could see all links if you knew that you were looking for a specific link.
The rotor, by the way, sounds like a Judas Priest song from the early 90s. Just letting you know.
Rotor of death.
The rotor!
So okay, on voiceover, I'm gonna open up the rotor. I think it's Control Option Command H.
Heading level 1. Opinions.
Nope.
You are currently on a voiceover help menu.
Stop!
There it is.
Wait,
that
wait,
was
what was
help.
it?
No, this is help. Hold on.
That was
Well, you have to edit this out.
live coding.
Opening voiceover U application. Window. Toolbar. Voiceover off.
Last time.
Caitlin loves risk and mistakes that happen. All right, so what Nick is doing actually on the screen right now is a tactic that makes people like us sound really smart, but we're really not. We just know how to use Google. So you basically search for the term that you're looking for. In this case, voiceover or rotor voiceover.
Which I did.
And
last week.
it will give him the key code. So a lot of your problems can be solved simply by just understanding how to use Google correctly.
It should be R. I don't know why it's not R. It should just be.
Caitlin, can we get Google to pay us for this podcast?
That might take some time,
That may take some time.
but let's make it a goal.
You. It's you.
It is you, Nick. It's all you.
Okay. Talking about the rotor.
I'm talking
Voiceover
about
on
the
Safari.
rotor.
Blog template for Bootstrap window. Blog template for Bootstrap web content has keyboard focus. You are currently on web content. To enter the web area, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
All right, so I'm gonna press Control Option U.
Links menu.
Great, got the rotor.
Okay, and so if
So
I
that's the links menu. Got it.
if I push
Oh.
right and left here,
Links menu. Headings menu.
There's the headings menu.
No items in
Got
web. Landmarks menu.
Landmarks, right?
Links menu. Headings menu.
All
Links
right,
menu.
so the rotor essentially has categories of things on the page.
Exactly.
So these are all the links on the page,
Right.
period. So somebody can use their cursor key. Right now, you're actually scrolling with the trackpad,
Right.
but you can use the cursor keys just to go down and
Yeah.
sort
Visit,
through
visit,
every
visit,
single
visit,
link.
Visit. Link.
Exactly.
US.
So why does this apply to?
Hey, does opinion come up as current? I'm just curious if it does that in the rotor.
Visit. Link. Current page. Visit.
Yeah,
Link.
okay.
Opinion.
Yeah, it's still highlighting the actual
Right,
element
right.
here. It's as if I was pressing.
But
it,
again,
a
they're not
different way.
seeing it, but they're in a different. Technically, they're in a different feature of the screen reader, which is this rotor. Cool.
Right.
Okay, great.
And if this was a site that you had visited a million times and you know, oh, I need to get to this link or whatever,
You can
or-
just jump to it quickly.
exactly.
Got it.
So now, how does this apply to Aria Label? If you look down here, I've got multiple links that have the same exact name. Learn more or read more.
Read more.
Right?
So
Read
that's a common pattern
more. Right.
that's done on a lot of news sites, magazine sites, any site that aggregates content,
Mhm.
particularly articles. So you'll have the name of the article, you'll have a short description, you'll have an image, and then you'll have read more or learn more. So to a typical user, you're looking at that screen
In context, right?
in context.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
you know I've got my title. Oh, read more about this. Read more about this. Read more about this. However, when you're looking at it in this instance on the rotor, or when you're tabbing through all the links, all you're getting is link, read more, link, read
Mhm.
more. So I have no context about what that read more link actually does or is.
Right. Exactly.
So you're going to show us how to give it context.
Yeah, and if you're trying to meet WCAG standards, I think this is actually a AAA consideration, but it's one that we do a lot because it makes sense.
Okay,
It's easy
so
to do.
let's just break it down. So
Yeah.
there's 3 levels of WCAG requirements. They fall in 3 categories: A, AA, AAA.
Right.
A is the, for lack of a better term, it's the basic stuff.
Right.
It's the base level accessibility that you should have on the site. AA is intermediate and AAA is advanced. Right. So typically we go to AA.
Right.
Right, and that's kind of a good balance. AAA handles a lot of things that are way more advanced, like the use of this
Mhm.
rotor tool, which is an option to screen reader. Probably not a lot of people access or use it, so that's probably why it's a AAA requirement, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even W3C says it's not realistic to try and hit AAA, but it's it's a collection of other considerations that you could
Right.
try to meet where possible. But okay, so I'm
However,
gonna jump to
context
this.
for a link
No items in
is
links menu.
not AAA. Context for a link
Blog
is
template for Bootstrap web
single A,
content.
right?
You are currently on web content. To enter the web area, press Control Option Shift down arrow.
This thing talks a lot.
Voiceover off.
Okay. So yes, link purpose
Yeah.
within context is single A. Yeah.
Okay.
So a link has to make sense. It has to have an accessible name.
So in this case, 8 read more links on a page
yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Doesn't
So
make sense.
so it's a single A. However, what you're going to show us, the trick you're going to show us, is going to actually solve for AAA.
Yeah.
Which
so
is just a
yeah,
bonus.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So if I look for these read more links. Okay.
Right.
Here's the first
So
one.
you just did a quick search to find read more.
So now right on the link element, I'm going to do Aria Label
Right.
equals, and I'm going to include read more because this is going to override this, and then also I can talk about what it's going to read more
So
about.
read more about
You got a topic for me?
read more about lorem ipsum, because that's what is sitting in the content above it. You know how to spell lorem ipsum? S-E-N.
Yeah,
You got it.
you got it.
All right. So, but then there's another read more link. So let's,
Yeah,
and we're going to change that one to something
Mhm.
else.
exactly. So if I scroll down to the next,
Just
There it is.
If we were scrolling for it.
so what is this one going to be?
Read more about. Didn't we last time we did Star Wars and Star Trek?
Yeah,
So let's do Star Wars
Star Wars.
and then go back and change everything to Star Trek.
Do you have any interest in seeing the new Star Trek Picard?
So, funny coincidence. I do some book cover design work separately
Yes.
outside. So one of the authors that I did a couple books. several books for actually. Philip Fracassi is actually one of the location people on that show, Picard.
So, he's a scout?
Yeah, but yeah. So it's one of his. I think it's more than a. It's his job to find the locations that they use.
Wow, this is awesome.
And he so he tapped on the thing.
Sorry.
So he had actually and I follow him on Twitter because we've done work together. He's a fantastic author. He writes horror stuff.
Okay.
And he made a post of, I think, the vineyard shot from Picard, and he made
Chateau Picard. Yeah.
Right, and he made and I'm like, great to work on this project. I forget what it was, and I'm like, what? He's like, oh yeah, my day job is this, but I also do this, and it was just like, you worked on that show? How freaking cool is that?
So freaking cool.
So,
can you get him to?
Dude's pretty much a
scout
rock
Syosset?
star. Yeah, right. I know. So pretty cool.
Okay, so I am adding this Aria label to the read more link.
Yep.
I got read more about Star Wars. So this one's going to be Star Trek. And read more about Star Wars. All right, and now I'm going to refresh the page. And I'm going to turn on voiceover and open up the rotor again.
Okay. So now when you go to the rotor, you should...
VoiceOver on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap window. Blog template for Bootstrap web content as keyboard focus. You are currently on web content. To enter the web area, press Control Option Shift down arrow. Links menu.
Okay, so we should have contextual semantic links now.
Visit link. Read more about Star Wars.
Oh.
Visit link. Read more about Star Trek.
So
Visit link. Read more about Star Wars.
it's not actually, it's doing two things here. So it's actually reading it, but in the rotor it's displaying what we actually put there, which is read more about Star Wars. It's no longer saying the text, which was just read more.
Right, exactly.
So as a designer or a UI person, if you want for some reason to make all of those links say read more, because that's the pattern that you've put together for so articles always say read more.
Right.
Videos always say watch now or something like
right.
that. This allows you to put context behind the scenes.
Right.
Very cool.
Cool.
Very cool.
No items in links menu.
Yeah, let me turn off.
No items in links menu. Blog template for Bootstrap web voiceover off.
It's fighting you.
Yeah.
You just Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is actually a pretty accessible framework, right?
It is.
Background,
very,
so.
very accessible. Yeah.
All right. So that was number 2.
Okay.
That was Aria Label.
Yeah.
Super cool. Probably what we should have done is save the little anecdote for after it, because that just kind of switches the anecdote. But what we want to do is I think we want to do 3 of these.
Yeah. Got one more.
Within the post. How we doing on time? We looking good?
It's 7:30.
How we doing on the length of the podcast? How
Thumbs
about
up.
you write it down on your little pad?
You can
Wait.
talk. We'll edit it out.
So, you know how we were just talking about people guessing what Shaq sounds like? How many people do you think are going to say, I don't know, but Chuck sounds like Ray Romano?
Yeah, they will yes. I can really, Deborah. I can really put it
You
on.
can ham it up.
Yeah. So, Ray, if you need a brother for a show or something,
For your
You got me.
cartoon.
for your cartoon, we're at 45 minutes. We're looking good.
All right, cool.
All right, so let's do the third one. I know what this one's going to be. This one's going to be fun. This is the bullets.
This is the bullet
right.
one. This is the bullet.
This one's actually great. So this was fun because we stumbled across this by accident,
Mm-hmm.
because one of our designs for a project we were working on, I believe it was for a client that we're not actually allowed to talk about.
No. But it's fine.
We have a pretty large client we do a ton of work for. Can't say their name, but I can guarantee almost everybody who's watching this knows who they are.
It's the KGB.
It's a super secret project. We can't tell you about
It's a
it.
super secret, but we'd have to kill you. So there was a design element, which was a series of dots
Mhm.
that was on there. So as opposed to doing an image or an SVG of that,
Right.
somebody in your team used the bullet
Right.
to represent it, and super lightweight, do it all in code, great, awesome,
And you even know the shortcut for it, which impressed me so much.
which
last
is
time.
option 8, right? So you hold it on a Mac, option 8,
I'll
shift
never-
8 is the asterisk, option 8's the bullet. So basically just use that. If you want to do the ASCII code, it's
Amazed.
&BUL semicolon.
No way.
So that's the actual.
I don't even believe that.
It is. Yeah, do it. &BUL.
Oh,
L.
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
BULL.
BULL.
Semicolon. So that will actually make a bullet. However, so that looked great, worked fine. However, when we went to accessibility testing and did our human testing with screen reader, show them what we heard, Nick.
Well, because they're actually bullets, we actually heard the word
Voiceover
bullet.
on Safari. Blog tablet for
This is so
selected.
great.
Bullet. Currently on text element.
So
Voiceover
did you
off.
hear how it stopped? Bullet. So that was the last one. That was
That
the
was the
ampersand bull.
Yeah, okay.
So
Option 8 should be our podcast name.
option 8.
If we were a podcast about bullets.
You know
maybe.
what?
But you like it?
I like it. Option 8.
Do you know all the options?
Quick, Caitlin, check. Because if it's good, we can use it. I
Maybe
like it
it's-
better than Thrill Geekers.
Hope.
Caitlin's checking.
I'm checking all the option ones.
I still kind of like.
Can we call Shaq Radio?
Okay, the word
Because from the movie Radio, he had the
Oh.
the word spelled out.
Yeah.
8 is taken.
Okay.
Yeah, it's taken. Even with the number 2.
You mean it's option 2, which is the trademark one. Never. Okay. All right.
Good
So,
suggestion, Shaq.
so we'll edit that out.
I like Coders Without Borders. I'm into
But
it.
then we would have to go places.
Or we wouldn't be
Or-
wouldn't be allowed to use the border
No,
CSS attribute.
It means that
How do you do that? Everything's an after with a
Coders?
with a-
Okay.
Coders Without Borders, meaning that you talk about coding, but you are not limited to talking.
Oh,
You
okay.
have no borders.
Right.
So, you can
So
talk about,
what the audience is now getting an insight is to the creative process
yes.
and the while Nick is very prepared, which is great. The name, not so much.
No, I'll leave that up
So
to you
it
guys.
may change. It may not be called Thrill Geekers. It may be called Coders Without Borders.
Or we may call up this option 8 guy and show up at his house or something.
It may be called bullet,
Bullet.
bullet,
His
bullet,
name
bullet,
is
bullet.
Nate on Instagram.
Yeah, Nate. Let's call it Nate.
All right. So
So,
how do we so this is clearly an element that doesn't matter for anything other than the visual. It's a visual
Right.
separation.
exactly.
If I'm a blind user, I don't care about that because it's not relevant to my understanding of the content on the page.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
how do we let's just get, we can't get rid of it because we need
Right.
it visually for the design. How do we get rid of it from a screen reader point of view?
Right. So because it's completely decorative, on the actual element, we can add Aria-Hidden.
Okay.
And that is just an indicator to the screen readers that they should ignore it.
All right. So this is just a standard div. Now you're just adding the attribute Aria-Hidden equals true.
Right.
And saving it. All right. So let's go and listen to the screen reader.
Sure.
Voiceover on Safari. Blog tablet for Bootstrap.
So
Window.
what-
Blog
so
tablet
what
for Bootstrap.
You're
Cross.
doing here.
Selected.
So you're using the
You
screen
are currently on
reader,
text element.
but you've actually selected a word by clicking by moving your mouse and
Yeah.
clicking, which is not something a blind user would
No.
use. But we're just going quickly through it.
Mhm.
So what it's actually doing is highlighting that word, and it
Right.
says you are on a word element.
Yeah.
Did it read the word element?
It did, yeah.
And it reads the word element.
Yeah.
So proceed.
Okay.
Visited link. Heading level 2. Another blog post. Voiceover off.
I have to
Okay.
refresh the page. And actually, I think I got 2 of these, so I might have to
Do we
it
call
on
the
both.
podcast refresh the page?
Now just everything we say is
No, actually,
Is that our podcast?
actually,
Is that a podcast
as a
name?
developer, I say, have you refreshed or hard refreshed the page, like weekly?
Okay, that could be our sign off.
We-
Have you
call-
refreshed the
we-
page?
Welcome to Thrill Geekers. Have you refreshed your page?
Have
We
you
can call
refreshed?
it hard refresh.
Hard refresh.
Look it up. Are we watching us or are we watching the screen?
Okay.
Put it to us.
Put it there.
We're much more interesting. So hold on. Now we're waiting.
It's taken.
Oh, come on. How about, is there a soft refresh? Hard refresh. Come
Hard,
on.
hard refresh.
I can't spell it any other way. Like
What?
How about with a silent Q?
What?
She's trying to
I'm
say.
trying to like think of other versions of the spelling. that
Hard
could be, but-
refresh?
Yeah, but it can't.
How about hard refresh?
hard command R or some
You're
no,
gonna say- put a
shift
hard
command
no
R.
on
No,
that
all
one.
right.
Damn.
All right, let's flip back to the screen.
Okay.
So you refreshed the page.
Yep.
A hard refresh.
Hard refresh.
So let's hear it.
Okay. So I'm gonna use screen reader.
Voiceover on Safari. Blog template for Bootstrap. Link. Cross. Selected. You are current. Visited. Link. Read more about Star Wars. Heading level 2. Another blog post.
Okay.
You are
So
currently on a heading. Voiceover off.
for those of you listening to the blog, what you didn't see was the focus state of the element. It jumped right over those bullets.
Yep.
And as if they weren't even there.
Right.
And went right to the next piece, which was the next article, basically within this list. Which I don't think you actually coded it with articles. You didn't. Right?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be a topic for another post.
Another time, yeah. Regions definitely could talk all about that. So Aria-Current, you're putting on the focusable element.
Yep.
Aria Label, you're putting it on a focusable element or an element that would be read by
Got
the
it.
screen reader. And Aria-Hidden, you can put it on anything. You can put it on a div or whatever.
Anything that is purely decorative, that doesn't make any difference for a screen reader user,
Right.
and it doesn't affect the viewing of the page for a typical user.
Right. There's actually a super technical limitation on Aria-Hidden, though. And maybe I'll get
Hit
that
me with
into
your
that.
super
Okay,
technical
you ready?
limitation. I'm ready.
You cannot put
Are
it.
they ready?
You can't put Aria-Hidden on an element that is focusable or it contains things that are focusable. So, for example, if you
What
had
does that mean? Like a link?
if you put Aria-Hidden on a link, you could still tab to it, and you could still focus on it with a screen reader, but it wouldn't have a name, and so it makes that link inaccessible. It actually doesn't hide it.
Oh.
So what you would normally do is you would also couple it with tab index -1 if you really wanted to hide this link from screen readers and keyboard users.
So why would you want to hide a link from screen readers?
That's a great question.
Like, what would be the use case for that?
So imagine you had, let's say, a slide out menu tray.
Yep.
Like we have on our website, right?
Right.
So all of those links,
MillenniumWeb.com.
all of those links within your slide out menu could be display none, which is probably what you're probably going to do.
Right.
But if they weren't display none, they would actually be still accessible by your keyboard or by the screen reader, even though they're not visible. They're off screen.
Okay.
So
Got
you would kind of put basically Aria-Hidden equals true and tab index -1. Actually, an example that we used recently was we had a carousel, and we had the slides that were off out of your field of vision.
Right.
Instead of display none, which destroyed the carousel that we were using because it made everything jumple around, we put Aria-Hidden.
Yeah, because a lot of
tab
times
index
carousels are going to use the width of those elements to
Yeah.
define how much it slides.
Exactly.
If you display none, it technically removes it from the DOM essentially. So
Right.
now the width doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly.
Or is gone.
Yeah.
So all right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so there is a reason.
Yeah.
Great.
And that was the last one for today.
All right. Excellent. So we've talked about some Aria labels.
Yeah.
Aria
Attributes.
Aria attributes. Aria label was one of the attributes we talked about.
Yeah.
God, why do I keep? I don't know,
I don't
anyway. What?
Cut off.
What do you want me to do with my beer? I'm cut off.
Yo, you're not drinking anymore.
Shaq's taking my beer. He doesn't want me to cut off anymore.
He spoke. He has to go back
He
to his
spoke.
realm.
We heard him. He didn't say cash though.
He did not cash.
So great. Okay, we're good. So we'll wrap it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. And if you're on Long Island, please come visit us at our meetup. We will put all those links within the show notes or in the section below, description below. So for Nick, I'm Chuck.
And for Chuck, I'm Nick.
Make sure you. That's how you sign off.
No,
For
that's
Nick,
it is. Yeah.
I'm Chuck.
Yeah.
Make sure you hard refresh your page
And subscribe.
and subscribe and hit the little bell because that's a notification. So
That
when
is.
we post, you'll get notifications. You can see us.
All right. Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers. All right.
Great work.